The future depends on what you do today. Mahatma Gandhi. Most people hear these words and think they are being encouraged to work harder, struggle longer, or push themselves through greater effort. But there is a deeper meaning hidden inside them. The future depends on what you do today, because what you repeatedly accept as true today becomes the reality you eventually experience tomorrow. Your outer world is not randomly assembled by circumstances. It is shaped, influenced, and directed by the invisible activity taking place within you every single day. The thoughts you entertain, the assumptions you hold, the images you repeatedly revisit in your imagination, and the feelings you allow yourself to dwell in are quietly building the framework of your future experience. If you truly understand this, then you will realize that your life is not beginning when conditions change. It is not beginning when money arrives, when opportunities appear, when relationships improve, or when the world finally gives you permission to become the person you want to be. Your transformation begins the moment you stop treating your current circumstances as the ultimate authority. The moment you understand that the visible world is often the delayed expression of a much deeper reality, you reclaim a power that most people unknowingly surrender. Think about how many times people spend their lives asking reality for evidence before they allow themselves to believe. They say, "When I see success, I will feel successful." They say, "When I receive love, I will feel worthy." They say, "When my situation improves, then I will become confident." But this way of living places your inner state at the mercy of external events. It turns you into a follower of circumstances rather than a creator of experience. And the strange thing is that the world often mirrors this dependency back to you, keeping the desired experience just out of reach. The great secret is that life responds differently when you reverse the process. Instead of waiting for the world to provide evidence, you begin by embodying the feeling of the person who already possesses what you seek. You stop asking reality for permission to become someone new. You decide internally that the transformation has already begun. This does not mean pretending in a superficial way. It does not mean forcing fake positivity while secretly remaining doubtful. It means entering so deeply into a new self concept that your mind gradually accepts it as natural. Imagine a person standing before a mirror. If they dislike what they see, they may spend years fighting the reflection. They may blame the mirror, criticize the image, and become frustrated by what appears before them. Yet, no matter how intensely they argue with the reflection, nothing changes. The reflection changes only when the person standing before it changes. Life operates in much the same way. The world often acts as a mirror, reflecting dominant assumptions held within consciousness. When those assumptions shift, the reflection eventually follows. This is why imagination is one of the most misunderstood powers available to human beings. Many people treat imagination as fantasy, something separate from reality. They think it is merely entertainment for the mind. Yet every invention, every achievement, every masterpiece, every transformed life first existed as an invisible image before becoming a visible fact. Everything that surrounds you today was imagined before it was created. The chair you sit on, the building you live in, the technology you use, all began as unseen possibilities within someone's consciousness. Your imagination is not given to you so you can escape reality. It is given to you so you can participate in shaping reality. Every time you vividly imagine a possibility and emotionally identify with it, you are planting seeds within the deeper layers of your mind. And just as seeds require time before they emerge from the soil, these inner impressions often require time before they appear as physical experiences. The mistake many people make is digging up the seed every day to check whether it is growing. Doubt, impatience, and constant worry interrupt the natural process. Consider how different your life would feel if you trusted the unseen as confidently as you trust the visible. Think about the peace that would arise if you understood that every genuine inner transformation eventually produces corresponding outer effects. The anxiety that consumes so many people often comes from believing they must force reality into existence through constant struggle. Yet there is another way. There is a way of disciplined faith, where you consistently align yourself with the reality you desire until it becomes your dominant state of being. This does not mean you will never encounter challenges. It does not mean difficult moments disappear overnight. What changes is your relationship with them. Instead of interpreting every obstacle as evidence of failure, you begin to see it as temporary movement within a larger process. You stop allowing appearances to dictate your identity. You become anchored in something deeper than circumstance. The person who understands this principle develops a remarkable stability. They are no longer thrown into despair by every setback or inflated by every temporary success. They know that the most important work is occurring within consciousness itself. They recognize that external events are often echoes rather than causes. Because of this understanding, they become less reactive and more intentional. Their inner conversations change. Their expectations change. Their emotional habits change. And eventually their experiences begin changing as well. But there is another layer to this transformation that many people overlook. It is not enough to occasionally imagine a better future while continuing to identify with an old version of yourself throughout the rest of the day. Real change requires a shift in identity. You must begin asking yourself a different question. Instead of asking, "How can I get what I want?" ask, "Who would I be if what I want were already true?" That question opens a doorway into a completely different way of living. Because the truth is that every desire carries within it an invitation to become someone new. The desire is not merely pointing toward an external achievement. It is calling you toward a deeper expansion of self. And once you begin understanding this connection between identity, imagination, and experience, you start discovering why some people appear to transform their lives in ways that seem almost extraordinary. What they understand is not necessarily a secret technique or hidden formula. It is a principle so simple that many overlook it. They understand that the person they consistently assume themselves to be eventually becomes the person they experience in the world. And as we move deeper into this understanding, we must explore how assumptions silently govern every area of life, often creating results without our awareness. Because this is where the real journey begins. If the person you consistently assume yourself to be eventually becomes the person you experience in the world, then one of the most important questions you can ever ask yourself is this: what am I assuming to be true about myself right now? Not what you wish were true, not what you tell others, not what you occasionally think during moments of inspiration. What do you genuinely accept as true when no one is watching? Because beneath every visible result lies an invisible assumption, and those assumptions are shaping your experiences, whether you are conscious of them or not. Many people carry hidden beliefs they never intentionally chose. They assume they are unlucky. They assume opportunities belong to other people. They assume success is difficult, love is complicated, abundance is scarce, and their dreams are somehow beyond reach. These assumptions often develop gradually through years of repetition. A disappointment occurs, and a conclusion is formed. A rejection happens, and an identity is created. A failure appears, and a limitation is accepted. Over time, these conclusions become so familiar that they feel like facts rather than interpretations. Yet assumptions are not necessarily truth. They are simply states of consciousness that have been accepted and reinforced. And the remarkable thing about a state is that it can be changed. Just as a person can move from darkness into light by stepping into a different room, they can move from one identity into another by repeatedly occupying a different mental and emotional state. This is why inner transformation is not about fighting your old beliefs. It is about becoming so familiar with a new reality that the old one gradually loses its influence. Imagine entering a theater and watching the same movie every day for years. Eventually, you would know every scene, every line, and every outcome. The story would feel inevitable because you have experienced it so many times. Most people are doing something similar with their inner conversations. They replay the same mental stories repeatedly. They anticipate disappointment before it happens. They rehearse arguments that have not occurred. They imagine failure long before taking action. Then, when similar experiences appear in life, they call it coincidence. But what if the movie changes? What if the script changes? What if you begin consistently introducing a new story into consciousness? At first, it may feel unfamiliar. The old patterns may attempt to pull you back. Doubt may whisper that nothing is changing. Yet every new assumption begins as something unfamiliar. The person you are becoming cannot feel natural immediately because it belongs to a different state of consciousness. Persistence is what bridges the gap between the unfamiliar and the natural. This is where mental discipline becomes essential. Not the discipline of forcing yourself into constant positivity, but the discipline of returning your attention to the reality you choose to occupy. There will be moments when appearances contradict your vision. There will be moments when circumstances seem unchanged. During those moments, your greatest work is not changing the world around you. Your greatest work is maintaining your inner alignment. Consider a captain steering a ship across the ocean. Storms may arise, waves may become violent, visibility may decrease. Yet the captain does not abandon the destination every time conditions become difficult. He continues steering according to the chosen course. Likewise, your inner state must become more influential than temporary appearances. Otherwise, every external condition will pull you in a different direction. One of the greatest misunderstandings about manifestation is the belief that it is primarily about acquiring things. People focus on money, relationships, careers, achievements, and possessions. While there is nothing wrong with these desires, they are often symbols of something deeper. Behind the desire for wealth may be a desire for freedom. Behind the desire for love may be a desire for connection. Behind the desire for recognition may be a desire to feel valuable. The external object is frequently a reflection of an inner longing. When you understand this, something powerful begins to happen. Instead of endlessly chasing experiences, you start cultivating the states they represent. You begin generating within yourself the feelings you once believed could only come from outside circumstances. This does not eliminate desire. Rather, it transforms your relationship with it. You no longer pursue your dreams from a sense of lack. You approach them from a growing sense of wholeness. Think of how different your energy becomes when you stop viewing yourself as someone trying to get something and begin viewing yourself as someone expressing what already exists within. The desperate struggle starts fading. Fear begins losing its grip. Confidence develops not because every condition is perfect, but because your identity is becoming independent of conditions. And this is where faith takes on a deeper meaning. Faith is often misunderstood as blind belief. Yet true faith is not conviction. It is the ability to remain loyal to a vision before physical evidence appears. Every meaningful creation requires this quality. The artist sees the masterpiece before the canvas is complete. The architect sees the building before construction begins. The inventor sees the possibility before the world recognizes it. Likewise, you must learn to see your desired reality internally before it fully materializes externally. The world often rewards those who remain faithful to an unseen possibility long enough for it to become visible. Not because they are magically favored, but because sustained attention and sustained identity possess tremendous creative power. The mind gradually organizes itself around what it repeatedly accepts as true. Decisions begin changing. Perceptions begin changing. Opportunities that were once ignored become visible. Paths that seemed hidden begin revealing themselves. Yet there is an even deeper level to all of this. Beyond assumptions, beyond imagination, beyond faith, there exists something that quietly determines whether your inner vision gains momentum or loses strength. It is something most people experience every day without realizing its influence. It shapes their energy, their expectations, and their relationship with reality itself. That force is the emotional atmosphere they live in. And until you understand how emotions interact with consciousness, identity, and manifestation, you are only seeing part of the picture. Because what you consistently feel does more than affect your mood. It helps determine the reality you continue to occupy. And this is where our journey must go next. Because once you understand the hidden connection between emotion and creation, everything begins to look different. The emotional atmosphere you live in is far more powerful than most people realize. Many spend years attempting to change their lives by altering external conditions, while paying little attention to the emotional environment they carry within themselves. Yet emotions are not merely reactions to life. In many ways, they become signals of the state of consciousness you are occupying. They reveal the identity you are embodying and the assumptions you are accepting as true. Think about how differently the world appears when you feel confident compared to when you feel discouraged. The same opportunity can seem exciting in one state and impossible in another. The same conversation can feel promising in one moment and threatening in the next. What changed? The outer world remained largely the same. The change occurred within. Your emotional state altered your perception, and perception influences the actions you take, the choices you make, and the possibilities you recognize. This is why mastering your inner world is not about suppressing emotions. It is about understanding them. Every emotion is carrying information. Fear often points toward a belief in limitation. Resentment may reveal attachment to an old story. Anxiety frequently indicates an attempt to control outcomes that have not yet occurred. On the other hand, gratitude, confidence, peace, and expectancy often reflect alignment with a more expansive vision of life. Many people mistakenly believe that emotions happen to them. They wake up waiting to see what kind of mood circumstances will produce. If events go well, they feel good. If events go poorly, they feel discouraged. In this way, their emotional state becomes dependent upon conditions. But there is another possibility. You can begin generating emotional states intentionally. You can cultivate inner experiences that are not entirely dictated by what is happening around you. Imagine someone who desires success. If they constantly feel inadequate, fearful, and doubtful, they are mentally and emotionally identifying with failure, even while verbally affirming success. The words may say one thing, but the emotional atmosphere communicates another message entirely. The deeper mind responds not only to what is said, but to what is consistently felt. This is why emotional alignment matters so profoundly. Consider how a gardener prepares soil before planting seeds. Rich soil supports growth, poor soil limits it. Your emotional atmosphere functions much like that soil. The ideas you plant within consciousness are influenced by the emotional environment surrounding them. When hope, faith, confidence, and expectancy become familiar states, your inner vision gains strength. When fear and doubt dominate every day, even powerful ideas struggle to flourish. This does not mean you must maintain perfect emotions every moment of your life. Human experience includes challenges, disappointments, and periods of uncertainty. The goal is not emotional perfection. The goal is emotional awareness. It is learning to recognize when you have drifted into a state that contradicts the reality you desire and gently guiding yourself back toward alignment. One of the most effective ways to do this is through mental rehearsal. Every day, whether consciously or unconsciously, people rehearse future experiences in their minds. Unfortunately, many rehearse problems rather than solutions. They imagine worst case scenarios. They relive old failures. They mentally repeat conversations filled with conflict and disappointment. Then they wonder why these emotional patterns continue strengthening. What if you reverse that habit? What if you deliberately rehearse the reality you wish to experience? What if you spend time each day entering the feeling of fulfillment rather than the feeling of lack? Not as an escape from reality, but as preparation for a different reality. The mind cannot always distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and physical ones. When you repeatedly enter a desired state, emotionally and mentally, it begins feeling familiar. Familiarity gradually becomes belief, and belief influences behavior, perception, and experience. This process is not about forcing outcomes, it is about becoming internally compatible with them. Think of a radio receiver. It picks up frequencies matching its tuning. If your dominant emotional state is fear, you tend to notice evidence supporting fear. If your dominant emotional state is confidence, you become more receptive to opportunities, solutions, and possibilities. The world may contain both, but your state influences what captures your attention. There is another important truth that many overlook. The emotional atmosphere you cultivate affects not only what you experience, but also how you experience it. Two individuals may receive identical opportunities and produce completely different results because they interpret those opportunities through different states of consciousness. The other sees risk. One sees growth. The other sees limitation. The difference is often internal rather than external. As this understanding deepens, you begin realizing that life is not asking you to become someone else. It is inviting you to awaken a greater version of yourself that already exists in potential. Every desire that repeatedly appears in your heart may be pointing toward an expansion waiting to occur. It is not necessarily evidence of what you lack. It may be evidence of what you are capable of becoming. The challenge is that the old identity rarely surrenders without resistance. The familiar self often attempts to preserve itself. Old doubts resurface. Old fears return. Old stories seek your attention. This is why persistence is so important. Not because reality is stubborn, but because habits of consciousness require repetition to change. Every time you choose the new story over the old one, you strengthen a different pathway. Every time you return to faith instead of fear, you reinforce a different identity. Eventually, something remarkable begins happening. What once required effort starts feeling natural. Confidence no longer feels forced. Gratitude becomes easier. The vision you once struggled to believe starts feeling obvious. You stop trying to convince yourself because your inner state has changed. And when the state changes, the way you interact with reality changes as well. Yet there remains one final piece of this journey, a piece that ties everything together. Because understanding imagination, assumptions, identity, faith, and emotion is powerful. But there is still a question that must be answered. How do you live day after day as the version of yourself who already embodies the reality you desire? How do you sustain this transformation until it becomes your new normal? And most importantly, how do you move from knowing these principles intellectually to experiencing them as a living reality? That is where the final stage of this conversation begins, and it is there that everything we have explored will finally come together. The final stage of this journey begins with a realization that is both simple and profound. Knowledge alone does not transform a life. Understanding principles is valuable, but transformation occurs when those principles become a way of being. Many people spend years collecting wisdom, reading books, listening to teachings, and searching for answers, yet remain unchanged because information has not become embodiment. The bridge between understanding and manifestation is daily identification with the person you choose to become. The question is no longer whether these ideas are true. The question is who you are going to be when you leave this moment and return to your everyday life. Because your future will not be determined by occasional inspiration. It will be shaped by the states you repeatedly occupy. Every day presents countless opportunities to choose your identity. Every thought, every reaction, every assumption becomes a vote for the version of yourself you are strengthening. Imagine a sculptor standing before a block of stone. The masterpiece does not appear in a single strike of the chisel. It emerges through consistent shaping. Piece by piece, the unnecessary parts are removed until the hidden form becomes visible. In much the same way, your transformation is not about creating a new self from nothing. It is about revealing what has been buried beneath years of limitation, doubt, and conditioned beliefs. For many people, the greatest obstacle is not the world around them. It is their attachment to an old story. They continue introducing themselves to life through memories of who they used to be. They define themselves by previous failures, old disappointments, and outdated identities. Yet the past possesses no creative power unless you continually bring it into the present through your attention. Every moment offers an opportunity to release an old definition and accept a new one. This does not mean denying your history. It means refusing to let history dictate your destiny. There is a profound difference between remembering where you have been and believing you must remain there. The person you were yesterday is not a prison. It is simply a chapter, and no chapter has the authority to determine how the story ends. One of the most powerful practices you can develop is learning to ask yourself a new question throughout the day. How would the version of me who already possesses this reality think, feel, and respond right now? This question shifts your attention away from lack and toward embodiment. It moves you from wishing into becoming. Instead of waiting for circumstances to transform you, you begin transforming first. When challenges arise, that question becomes even more valuable. If you desire confidence, how would the confident version of you respond? If you desire abundance, how would the abundant version of you think? If you desire peace, how would the peaceful version of you interpret this situation? These questions gradually retrain consciousness. They interrupt old patterns and strengthen new ones. Over time, something extraordinary begins to happen. The identity you once practiced starts becoming natural. The thoughts you once had to choose intentionally begin arising automatically. The emotional states you once struggled to maintain become familiar companions. What was once effort evolves into habit. What was once imagination begins expressing itself through experience. Many people underestimate the significance of this process because they are focused exclusively on visible result. They constantly ask, when will it happen? Yet the deeper question is, who am I becoming? The outer manifestation is important, but it is often the final stage of a transformation that has already occurred internally. The world eventually catches up to the person you have become. Think about the greatest achievements in human history. Every remarkable creation existed first as an unseen possibility. Every breakthrough was once invisible. Every accomplishment was once dismissed as unrealistic by someone. The visible world has always been preceded by the invisible. This principle operates not only in inventions and achievements, but also in personal transformation. Your future exists first as a possibility within consciousness before it appears as an experience in the world. This is why persistence matters so deeply. Not because you must convince reality to cooperate, but because consistency stabilizes identity. Every day you remain faithful to your chosen vision, you strengthen your alignment with it. Every day you refuse to surrender to old assumptions, you loosen their influence. Every day you choose faith over fear, possibility over limitation, and vision over appearance. You are participating in the creation of a new experience. There will be moments when evidence seems absent. There will be seasons when progress feels invisible. During those times, remember that many of life's most important processes occur beneath the surface. Seeds grow in darkness before they emerge into light. Foundations are built before buildings appear. Inner transformation often unfolds quietly before it becomes obvious. Trust the process of becoming. Trust the unseen movement taking place within you. Trust that every constructive thought, every elevated assumption, every act of faith, and every moment spent identifying with your highest vision is contributing to something larger than you may currently perceive. Most importantly, understand that your power has never been located in circumstances. It has never depended entirely on conditions, approval, timing, or external permission. Your greatest power has always resided in consciousness itself, in your ability to choose meaning, direct attention, cultivate belief, and assume a new identity. This power is available to you now, exactly where you are. The moment you stop waiting for life to tell you who you are and begin deciding who you are from within, everything starts changing. The moment you stop asking circumstances for permission to believe and begin believing first, a new relationship with reality is born. The moment you understand that imagination is not an escape from life, but a creative force within life, possibilities that once seemed distant begin moving closer. So walk forward with certainty. Carry your vision with confidence. Let your imagination become a sacred workshop where new realities are formed. Let faith become stronger than appearances. Let your assumptions reflect the future you choose rather than the limitations you inherited. And as days become weeks, and weeks become months, watch carefully, not only for changes in your circumstances, but for the deeper miracle taking place within yourself. Because the greatest manifestation is not merely receiving what you desire. The greatest manifestation is becoming the person capable of experiencing it. And when that transformation is complete, you will discover that the life you once hoped for was waiting on the other side of the person you chose to become.